Good evening. I am so proud today to acknowledge Ron's book, Such Were the Conditions, the Kahnplay Incident. I couldn't put the book down. My name is Yhap, and I read the entire book. I feel so proud to have been a part of your life. And you don't have to tell me that back, because I can see from this book that that you honored me, and I like to thank you for it. I feel so emotional right now doing this. You know, Liberia, such a unique country, steeped in pride. Our country stood as a testament to resilience. We never officially were colonized, not in the traditional sense. The echoes of our past reverberated with our triumphant survival of slavery, an ordeal which we embarked on to embark on a noble mission. In the 1800s, we waged a relentless war against the very roots of slavery, intercepting slave ships as they traversed our shores. And of course, in Ghana, you see the evidence of that. Our commitment to justice manifested in the establishment of a safe haven for the hapless, unfortunate, unwitting, and unwilling passengers who found refuge within our borders. That is Liberia. Uncolonized in the conventional sense, we carved our own narratives, one that was intricately woven with defiance, strength, and a profound determination to rectify the historical injustices that had plagued our people. Our commitment to supporting the cause of freedom persisted well into the 1970s, with Liberia actively sponsoring freedom fighters from various countries. President Tolbert stood as a resolute advocate for self-reliance, self-determination, non-alignment, and total African liberation during a time when such stances were highly unpopular in a Western context. His visionary thinking extended beyond Liberian borders, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's history. Tolbert's commitment to these principles reached a critical juncture when, during a speech at the United Nations General Assembly, he boldly called for the liberation of Palestine and endorsed the right of self-determination for the Palestinian people. This principled stance, while earning him admiration among like-minded supporters, also marked a turning point that many Liberians believe became the metaphorical signing of his death warrant. This was the cloud that hung over Liberia as Ron began his engagement with the country. The repercussions were swift and severe. The U.S. media mobilized against Tolbert played a significant role in shaping a narrative that would cast a dark shadow over his presidency. A particularly damning CBS 60 Minutes documentary, widely promoted and publicized, lambasted the Liberian government. Going beyond policy critique, the documentary extended its venomous criticism to the personal realm, targeting the family of the president and many of his cabinet ministers. Tragically, this media campaign would have far-reaching consequences, as many members of Tolbert's family would become victims of brutal persecution and violence during the fateful events of April 1980. This was the Liberian experience that Ron came face to face with early in his engagement. President Tolbert's unwavering commitment to his convictions, even in the face of intense opposition, serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities and challenges faced by leaders who dared to challenge the status quo in pursuit of justice and liberation. His legacy, shaped by both courage and tragedy, remains an integral part of Liberia's historical narrative. In 1979, October, Ron arrived in Liberia, unknowingly stepping into a role where he would inadvertently become a savior for the nation, or at the very least, help to chart a course for its salvation. It was a pivotal time as I too returned from my studies in early 1980, rejoining a Liberia brimming with pride and, some might argue, bordering on arrogance. The air carried an exceptionalism that set us apart from other African countries, and not without reason. Our country was at the forefront of the charge for African liberation, united leaders from the northernmost part to the southernmost regions, fostering collaborations from Libya to South Africa. Our influence extended way beyond the continent, as we led the Organization of African Unity and reached out globally to other marginalized nations. However, it became increasingly apparent that our leadership, perhaps driven by a certain naivety to geopolitical consequences, had inadvertently set the stage for significant changes. As young professionals just embarking on our careers, we remained oblivious, even when the stark reality of a coup confronted us in April of 1980. The unfolding of Kahnplay 7 months later in November 1980 lifted the cinematic veil from our eyes. Only then did we gain a more discerning view of the circumstances that had placed us squarely in the midst of a complex, transformative period. As I read Ron's masterpiece of a book, Such Were the Conditions, the Kahnplay Incident, the fact that the time span between his arrival in Liberia and the coup was not lost on me. Within only 6 months, Ron had forged personal relationships with some of the most powerful officials in the country. Ron explains this away by pointing out that as an outsider, he is not in contention, and so there is no intimidation and hence no hesitancy to engage. I don't buy that. These were folks who were friends of my parents. And in some cases, it would have seemed disrespectful for me to even attempt a casual conversation with them, not to mention being inquisitive of their professional activities. Moreover, these were people who were leading the charge for African unity and liberation, not only Liberia, but all of Africa. Not anyone can pull that off, outsider or not. Ron had to be special. Even then, at our old ages now, well, you might say that probably in most cases age brings wisdom, but even then there was wisdom. Many of those people saw their John Pounds long before our Kahnplay experience, and after more than 40 years, their survivors, their progeny, still are not able to come to terms with the events leading up to, including their gruesome deaths. As a result, there is no definitive account of the coup, either from the perpetrators or from the victims. This book opens up a powerful can of worms, evoking and accounting for the pathway that we chose that pathway of destruction for our country. Kahnplay remains an experience that lingers in the depths of my own memory. A chapter I often wish to relegate to the furthest recesses of my mind. Even today, reflecting on those harrowing days, I can't help but shudder at the thought. An ordeal I wouldn't wish upon even my worst enemy. Ron's ability to infuse some satire into his recollections, while that is admirable, is a skill that I find elusive under the circumstances. The surrealism that enveloped me during our captivity left no room for external scrutiny, making me question how I, a person adept at navigating various situations in Liberia, had found myself so utterly helpless and powerless in this particular instance. Worse yet, blaming myself for dragging my friend, a stranger, into the dungeons of shame and disgrace. Imagine talking to the foreign minister and 7 months later you are being disgraced. Thankfully, in the final analysis, we lived to tell the story. And hopefully, we will tell all of the story and all of the surrounding stories. But Ron has set a wonderful precedent here. He has laid down the foundation. And this is compelling reading for every person